Hello everybody, my name is Caroline Nettle and today is March the 13th, 2019 and today marks the celebration of my 12-year sobriety, which makes me very proud. And I have been thinking about doing a series of videos for a few weeks now about overcoming, addictions. I mean, clearly they don't usually loiter in ones, they're usually many others which contribute to the addictive personalities issues. So anyway, today on my 12th year sobriety, which I'm just so proud of, and I absolutely could not have done this on my own. The last group of ladies, if you like, that kind of pushed me towards what I needed, although I truly did not know that I was an alcoholic. And my life was pretty miserable and on the floor, and I decided to go into a treatment centre to see if I could deal with my depression. That's the reason I agreed to do it. But Sarah and Yvette ran the Sattvic Energy School, and the wonderful ladies and great friends that I've got from taking part in that circle of ladies, was the last little push that I needed to get me into sobriety. And I will cover that in later videos, but what I want to do today is talk about life before sobriety. So I have very little memory indeed. Practically none, and most of the memories I do have are ones that have been told to me by my sisters, aunts, mother, people like that, from 0 to 10. And what I understand from the work that I have done in treatment centres is that generally when life is just too horrible and abusive, the mind can shut itself off. And I want to say, after years and years going, I want to find out, I'm delighted that my brain was so horrified by what was going on in my formative years that it shut itself off. So it has helped me. The thing that I really resonated with, though, were the huge emotions that were coming from that period of sorrow, anger. I was massively scared. I had huge anxiety. So my life got remarkably better. My mum sent me to boarding school to be with my older sister at the age of, I think I was 10 or 11, something like that. Anyway, that's when my memory kicks in, and most of the girls there were in absolute tears because they missed their mum. I thought it was the best thing that had ever happened to me. She wasn't there anymore. There was none of, the horrible circumstances at home, and I could be who I was. And I'm going to be really candid here. Bullies tend to be people that have been bullied, and I think in that boarding school environment I turned into a bit of a bully, which I'm wholeheartedly ashamed of now, but ashamed is the wrong word. I didn't know any better, but I have read books about how appalling it is to send children away from their parents, and I have to say I disagree with that completely. Although, I do know that at that age I had no idea who I was, where I came from, and I desperately hated myself, because unfortunately for those of us that have suffered at the hands of our primary caregivers, we don't end up hating them, we end up hating ourselves. So I've been on a very long journey trying to discover who I was. My first ever drink that I remember, I was 11, I was on holiday with my darling godparents who were really naughty with me. My mum didn't appreciate bikinis or short skirts or high heels, so they made sure that they went out and they bought them for me. Anyway, at the age of 11, I went to Corsica on holiday with them and literally begged them to give me. I remember it was a little quarter jug, a quarter of a litre I think it is, or a quarter of a bottle, anyway, whatever it was, of rosé, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I've watched children have their first drink and they're like, oh, that wasn't the case for me. I asked for another one straight away. So by that time I'd had half a jug. I'm 11. I remember like being completely in love with the waiter at the restaurant who was 29 and I'm 11, but that didn't seem to be a problem for me. He had a green MGBGT and I just remember being totally in love with him. Anyway, at the end of the meal I got up and fell over, and pretty much that was my drinking career from then hence. I mean, I wasn't drinking permanently, of course, at the age of 11. It was a long time. I did have a mother who made a lot of homemade wine, and it was really easy to drink that. Most of it was disgusting, to be really honest, but I think by the age of probably 15, maybe 16, I mean, I was drinking before that, but not heavily, but I was probably an alcoholic for sure at the age of 17, I think. All sorts of really hard stuff because I'd had to go home at 13. My mum had taken my sister and me out of boarding school. We went home, and she's not an easy lady to live with, shall we put it like that. We don't agree on anything, ever. And, you know, the word narcissist, she's Asperger's. She's got lots and lots of problems. I really respect her as a woman and really think she's a dreadful mother, bless her. And she's still alive, so this feels a little bit uncomfortable to me to say things like that. But anyway, so throughout school I picked up makeup like it was breath to me, and I could not leave the house without way too much makeup on. And what I wore was super, super important to me, and I never liked the way I looked, and I never liked any part of my body. And to be honest, I got into treatment at 40 and there was a head. That was what I saw in my body. I had massive body dysmorphia, I think it's called, where, yeah, if I looked in the mirror I didn't see my body. I was so removed from it. Anyway, so I went through school. I did okay. I mean, I didn't work very hard, but I usually had a few boys on the go, and was much more interested in that than my schoolwork. But come from a very educated family, and did okay, I suppose, and got into university at Leeds. And I went there because they said the social life was good, and that's when my alcoholism just kicked off. Pints of lager were 50p, and you know, just getting drunk all the time, all the time, all the time. Barely scraped through those years. But again, it's this, I'm really sad about this girl that just didn't know who she was. I mean, just had no idea. So anyway, got through university drinking, basically, and being wild and reckless and silly. But by then I'd already established a really big addiction for me, and that was my passport. I sit here today having visited 69 countries, but most of that was running away from myself, and latterly I've been going there because that's what I want to do. But even in my unconscious travelling, which was mainly about drinking and being free, I think, and being away from myself, the sad thing is you always catch up with yourself. Yeah, I even in my, you know, darkest hours, I still managed to visit some really highly amazing places. So yeah, I look back and wish I'd been a bit more conscious when I did it, but I did travel. Then I got a job where I could travel and get paid for it in 5-star hotels. Alcoholism was just rampant, but I got paid to help get the clients drunk. That was one of my jobs. I was in international sales, so I was away from home all the time, so it was super easy to behave how I wanted to. I became a male in a male environment because that was the only way I could cope. And I know now, looking back, that I was just so reactive, excuse me, and touchy and defensive and like probably a bit of a nightmare to be around. But driven by this need to feel wanted, needed, special, fulfilled, all these things that we usually want, but I was doing it with chasing money. And I was desperately unhappy, and to be honest, by this stage, so we're now into my 30s, most of the time I was either dancing on the tables or sitting in the corner crying. I was a really miserable drunk. And, you know, whilst I think I had lots of fun as a result of my drinking, there were many, 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 many evenings where I must have been a wet blanket in the corner. And I truly didn't know why I was crying or what I was miserable about. Had no idea, but alcohol was the only way that I could cope. I made friends with people that like to drink, because that's what people who are addicts do. We look out for, you know, who we are, and we match with them. A lot of my friends did drugs. I never did drugs. I may have smoked a little bit, but, you know, nothing like the pill popping that they did. And I'm truly grateful for that, because I think I would be dead if that had happened. But I just hated myself and had no sense of self, and therefore my relationships with men were appalling. I went for men that I couldn't have because my parents had been unavailable to me, and because I couldn't have them, or they couldn't love me, because they all had their own issues. And to be honest, now I look back and I think, well, we were perfectly matched, but at the time I just thought the world was a horrible place, and men were really, really stupid and unfeeling, and of course those were the men that I was attracting. My relationships were painful, difficult, challenging. I never found the love that I was seeking because I didn't have any love for myself. I've written a list here because I really want to get this down. Yeah, and I was totally addicted to drama and chaos and bad stuff and bad behaviour, and I never could have a conversation one-to-one and enjoy it. I don't know if you've ever found that, but for me, I'd be having this conversation here, but looking over there and thinking, oh, that one looks better, and that one, I want to join in that one, and this one's really boring, and get over there and find that actually this one had been interesting and I'd messed up. So never really happy with anything, never feeling like I knew what I was supposed to do, just absolute lack of sense of self and lack of boundaries, which ended up with lots of people taking advantage of me, and I used to blame them, and now I can see that actually it was me that was in the wrong. I should have valued myself, although they do say, you know, if you're not given the tools, you can't look after yourself. So there was no parenting per se in my upbringing, apart from my elder sister took on the role a little bit, as is usual in families which are dysfunctional, and that has caused problems in our adult relationship as well, although we're now getting on really, really well, so that's good. But what I say to people who ask me what it was like is it was just really black. There was no joy, no happiness, no sense of worth or self or fulfillment or any of that. And gradually, more and more, the alcohol wasn't working. I would be drinking 2 or 3 bottles of wine every night and still not thinking I had a problem. And then I started speaking to spirit in my 30s, which came to me very easily, and actually that's what I do now. But I think that may have put me on the path to recovery. And then I went on a Satvik course because I didn't want to live anymore. It was too hard, it was too challenging, and I really felt that, how do I say this? I really felt that my family would be better off with me dead, I would be better off with me dead. I don't think I would have actually done it, but these were the thoughts that were going through my head. It was so dark and miserable and unhappy, and I just figured if I, you know, took myself off, everybody, well actually what I thought was nobody would notice, because I was in super victim mode. So that took me to my 40th birthday. I can't tell you what I did, I'm sure I did something, but it's all a bit of a blur, mainly because I was either on a plane or working or travelling or, you know, drinking, and it just was a very hedonistic, shallow life, really. But all of it was just a way to cope with the intense self-hatred and the lack of worth. Now, none of that is true today, although, you know, it's not perfect. It's an ongoing journey. So what I'm going to do is end there with me just about to go into what turned out to be treatment. I didn't know that when I got on the plane. So I just wanted today, on this celebration of my 12 years sobriety, to talk a little bit to how dreadful my life was. Mainly because I want to appeal to those people out there who perhaps don't know that they're addicted to a behaviour or a substance or, you know, negative thinking or whatever it might be, but they just know that something's not right in their life. I can wholeheartedly identify with that. And the next 3 or 4 videos are going to be how I overcame these behaviours and thought patterns and got to a place where I knew who I was and I enjoyed my life. So, thank you ever so much for listening. Congratulations to anyone out there who has even started on the path. It is one of the hardest things I've ever done. It is so, so worthwhile. I hope this is helpful. My website is spiritualgrowthtools.co.uk. If you want to go there, you'll see how I can help and what I offer. In the meantime, do watch out for the following videos, which will be more about how I recovered from that massive self-hatred. So, thanks for listening, and I'll be back soon.